Hi, this is Nate Klarfeld from the Stonewall National Museum and Archives. It is August 1st, 2013, and we are at the home of Sal Defalco of New York City and Fort Lauderdale. Hi, Sal. What's going on?
Hey, how are you?
Good. The reason we're here is Sal was one of the, well, he has a lot of things. He's an original, formerly employed at Studio 54, Backstreet in Atlanta, and also a bon vivant at Fire Island in the early 70s and 80s. Sal, hello. Where are you from, first of all?
I'm originally from New Jersey, a little place called Newark, New Jersey. 4 sisters, the only boy. We all have bad upbringings, but of course I had one and I moved on. At the age of 15, I ran away from home and ran away to New York. Took the PATH system to New York, and the first stop was Christopher Street. And at 15 years old, walking up the flight of steps onto Christopher Street, seeing for the first time a man and man holding hands, I knew that I walked into my world. I knew that my life was going to change from then because I was not alone. You know, growing up in Jersey back in that time, being gay was taboo, especially in an Italian Catholic family. But within the matter of weeks, I was working in a gay bar on Christopher Street called the Limelight, the original Limelight, not the one on 6th Avenue. And it was a drag palace. It was a great little nightclub. We had Penny Feathers across the street. We had the Duchess next door, which was a lesbian bar. And Limelight was famous for drag queens. Illusionist, I should say. Jackie Nicole, who did Shirley Bassey. David Miller did Barbara Streisand. We had Alan Lozito, who wound up going to Broadway in the show Let My People Come. David Miller's Barbara. I mean, it was just a great hangout. And unfortunately, I was underage.
And what year was this?
1975.
Okay.
And it was a mafia-owned bar at the time. And when they found out that I was only 15 going on 16, they took me off the bar and put me in the coat check room for the next year and a half.
Oh my. Do you have a picture of yourself at that time?
I have several pictures of me from
Well,
that
let's
time.
see what you look like. You look fabulous now, but let's take a look.
From that era, I have, let me see.
Okay, we're fine.
We gotta go back to the youth here. This is me sleeping on Fire Island.
Okay, hold on. I'm coming in.
I found that on the internet and copied it.
Fabulous.
Great.
Didn't we all look better with more hair?
Yeah, well, here's a better one for you.
Oh, good.
That's the age and what I looked like when I ran away from home.
Okay, I got it.
Do I look 15 in that photograph?
So that's about 1975, 1974?
Yeah, 74, 75.
Yay. Newark's loss was New York's gain.
My sister Marion, my sister Amory, my great-grandmother Nana, and these are my cousins.
Fabulous.
My sister Helen wasn't in the photograph, who was also gay.
Uh-huh.
She didn't want to be part of it.
Okay.
There were issues because I hadn't come out yet, but she had.
Oh, she had come out.
Right.
Got it.
So there were issues.
Are you still see your family?
I'm in touch with all of them. I actually had my sister Marion here 3 weeks ago, and then I had my sister Amory here last week.
Good for you.
My sister Helen lives in North Carolina. She's a correctional officer for one of the prisons in North Carolina. She's butch enough where it makes me look Nelly.
Well, that's always the case.
And I have my sister Patricia, whom we have a rocky relationship, you know. She has issues and drug problems, so I try to avoid that at all costs.
I'm sorry. Okay.
It happens.
So let's go. You're out of the coat check room and into...
From the coat check room, I was dating a man by the name of Richelieu Mellon. And Richelieu Mellon was part of the Mellon family in New York City. A very wealthy man. And I started dating him, and for the first time he took me on his private boat to Fire Island Pines. I was a young boy at the time, and he took me to this party, and we wind up getting to the house on the ocean in the Pines, and I walk into the house and there's absolutely no one there, and I'm thinking, uh-oh, this is some form of a trap. But as we walk through the house and walk outside to the pool, there were 18 men naked swimming in the pool, in which I had masturbated to for the last 3 years. They were all porno stars.
Oh my goodness.
And I stood there frozen for about 30 seconds. I looked like a lamb lost in the woods. And before you knew it, I was involved with the party and the group, and it changed my life. Fire Island in the 70s, it was heaven on earth for all the gay men in New York. We had a place to run and hide and be ourselves and play. I mean, there were parties on Fire Island that today you couldn't do anymore. I remember going to a New York party, and it was on the ocean, and there was an announcement made for everyone to run out to the outside deck and look, and this helicopter came up. And as the helicopter hovered over the sand, it got closer and closer, and a ladder came down. And on the ladder was Liza Minnelli singing New York, New York. And after she was done singing it, the ladder went back up and the helicopter took off.
That was it?
That was it.
Oh my God.
It was incredible. You were just sitting there in all awe.
Yeah.
I remember a party at the White House on the ocean. Gloria DeMann, who owned Plato's Retreat, her and her husband, had a White House. White walls, white floors, white fence, mirrored trim, white fake palm trees, white camels, and she had rented a barge. It was one of the first big AIDS fundraisers. And on that barge, she had Joan Rivers and Peter Allen perform for 3.5 hours. It was a $200 ticket event, and it was incredible.
Let's talk about your relationship with Peter Allen.
Peter Allen, I was in Rio de Janeiro with Franco Zeffirelli's lover, Pipo, and I had his cassette in the new Sony Walkman, and I was roller skating up and down Rio de Janeiro, and I was listening to his music. And when I went back home, I went to a nightclub called the Underground, and there he was with a group of friends drinking a bottle of champagne, and he saw me standing there in the corner, and he came up to me nervous as nervous could be with the bottle and the glass, and dropped both of them when he tried to talk to me. And we started dating from there, and it lasted about 3 years. I wasn't the only one, he had many.
Let me interject here. Peter Allen, of course, is Liza Minnelli's first...
Peter Allen's Liza Minnelli's first
gay husband.
He is also an Academy Award winner, songwriter.
5 Grammys.
5 Grammys. He's written 2 songs about me. One was called Love Is Easy on the Weekends on his last album. And the one infamous song he wrote, I was at LaGuardia Airport waiting for him to land, and there was a backup, so the planes were hovering over New York City. And when he got off the airplane, he came running up to me and Dee Anthony, who was an agent at the time, and his sister, yelling that he's got the lyrics, I've got the lyrics, I've got the lyrics. And the lyrics turned out to be, when you get caught between the moon and New York City, the best thing you can do is fall in love. And won an Oscar for Arthur's theme.
Arthur's theme, right.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was very impressed by it.
Beautiful song. And
he was in love with me, but he was in love with many others. He had Gregory, his original boyfriend, who the boy from Oz was written all about,
right,
where he sings to the grave and he sings back from the grave.
Right.
But, you know, I was just one of his boy toys, which I was proud to be.
Right. Well, I mean, that's... Hey,
you know, you're young and pretty, and, you know, why not?
Let's see what you've got from Fire Island.
Well, I've got, actually, let's show you these.
Okay, good.
Here's Peter Allen and I.
Let me get, okay, I got it.
Peter Allen and his sister and myself.
Let's go. That's a famous picture, actually. I've seen that picture when you Google Peter Allen. That's the picture that comes up. That's the picture that comes up when you Google Peter Allen.
We went to a party, Barbara Walters' birthday party, and we had a table, and Barbara Walters' table was next to ours, and she had 12 stunning men in tuxedos, and she was a little offended because Peter Allen kept making out with me at the table, and when the photographers tried to film us, Dee Anthony and Charles Sapone would get up and block the cameras because it was so taboo.
Sure.
And he was so famous at the time.
Okay, good.
Now wait, I've got one that's even better.
I'm coming over.
Where is this one? This is of
we're over here now.
Peter Allen and I sitting at the Fountain Blue in the dining room. It was like the Hollywood room, but we found the seat and above us was a picture of Liza Minnelli pointing down at us.
Let me get that
And we had to sit there because it looks like she's actually pointing at the two of us.
Two of us. Yeah, she's overlooking it now.
And I had to seal it because it was a Polaroid.
Was she married? He wasn't married to her then.
No.
Before.
This is way after the fact.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, it was the affair was great, but the man had drinking issues and different boys everywhere, and I was not willing to commit my heart and soul, but I did give in 3 years of my life. And unfortunately, he died of AIDS in 1991. When I moved from New York, he died. And then he would follow me, like he came to Fire Island a couple of times. Unfortunately, they called me a star fucker and a heartbreaker. But when you're dating a man who's got a long-time lover and lovers on the side, what's the point of giving 100% when you're just a boy toy?
Right.
And I understood that. I have no regrets.
Right.
It was good. I mean, I wound up going backstage at Radio City Music Hall. I saw how the stage went up and down. I went to the Golden Globe Awards with him when he was nominated for a Golden Globe for the main event with Barbra Streisand and John Peters.
Right.
Met John Peters and Barbara. No, that's Paul Jabara. Sorry.
Okay.
Wrong story.
That's okay.
Wrong story. Forgive me.
All right. Well, let's get on. Let's go back to Fire Island. What else do we have from the island?
Fire Island.
A whole bunch of stuff here that we looked at.
Yeah, Fire Island. I have. Let me see.
Okay. Don't worry.
I'm looking. Like I told you, that's a picture for me from Fire Island.
Okay.
This is also a photograph of me from Fire Island.
All right. Hold on.
I have a photo album.
You want to hold that for me?
But I didn't want to dig all those photographs.
Will you hold that for me?
Oh,
Sal?
I'm sorry, baby.
With you. I like it with you.
Oh, with me.
Yeah.
Yes, that's standing on the deck.
You're the main event.
That's me standing on the deck at the Monster when Joe Shallow owned it.
The Monster.
Yes.
I remember the Monster.
When Joe Shallow owned it.
How long was that? Wasn't in business that long, was it?
What?
The Monster.
Oh, it was in business for years.
I thought it was, okay, maybe.
It was when Richie Freddie took it over, and he was a straight man who didn't know his elbow from his butthole.
Right.
And he just wore it into the ground and destroyed it. And you saw that one. That's me sleeping on Fire Island.
I saw that. That's great.
I have other photographs, but they're all buried, and I went searching for them today.
Well, good. No, this is great stuff. Believe me, this is great stuff.
And then from there, Richelieu Mellon, who I told you I was dating, was the man who brought me to the opening night at Studio 54.
Okay.
And I went in with Richelieu Mellon, and I came out with a gentleman by the name of Don Finley, who was a big male model back in the 60s and 70s. And I went home with him, but somehow or another I woke up in Stephen Burrows' bed. Stephen Burrows being a big fashion designer in New York with Henry Bendel.
Correct.
And then before you know it, I was living there modeling for Stephen Burrows. I became a Burrow, as they called it, Burrow twink. He had a group of us that he would dress. He was doing women's wear, but he started making men's clothing just for us pretty little boys. And every night we went to Studio 54 dressed in his clothes. And we were white boys wearing purple, pink, fuchsia, turquoise, things that you wouldn't expect.
Sure. That's the Ivy League time.
Right. Everyone was very prim and proper with the little sweater around the neck and knotted.
Right.
And here we were doing purple sweatpants with a pink sweatshirt over it and a yellow sweatshirt over that, with leg warmings and green polka dots and you name it, we did it. Headbands, wristbands.
Great. That's good stuff.
And then I started working with Stephen Burrows with his fashions. And that led me into being at Studio 54 every night. And that's where, after being there for the first 2 years, every night of the week, I finally approached Steve Rebell on saying, well, can I work here? I'm here all the time. And his snide little remark was a dig, but also a compliment, saying now that the party's over, you can work here, meaning instead of me being a pretty boy on the floor where everybody could grope and chase, now you can go behind the bar and work for me. So in a way, I took it both ways. And That started my career.
And what year was that? Could you?
79.
That was 1979. That was the
Yes.
height of it all, right?
That was right before he had gone to jail.
Right.
You know, he hired me, and Skip O'Deck, who was the bar manager, who is now the general manager of the Delano in Miami Beach, him and his partner Pierre have been running it for years. Skip O'Deck hated me. There was nothing that he liked about me, but he had to hire me anyway.
That's good.
Because Steve Rebell said so.
Right.
So
Let's see your stuff from Studio 54. That's the exciting times of the 1,000 days of Steve Rubell, right?
Studio 54, it's amazing. Okay, here we go. We have this. This came out. It's now a collector's edition because they stopped making it. It's called The Legend Studio 54.
Paul, do we have this?
Do you have that?
I don't recall it.
Okay. I think you can still buy it, but I think now they're charging $200 and $300 for the book. This was like $100 15 years ago.
Okay.
But when I went to go buy the book, I started going through the pages. This is signed from my friend Angel Jack, who's in this, who just recently passed away.
Okay.
But as I opened up the book,
Slowly.
I'm sorry,
That's okay, good. Go
to
ahead.
go through the photo, there's Angel Jack.
Oh.
Angel Jack went in looking like that every night. He was part of the Hibiscus Screaming Mimes.
Ah,
It was a
I
group.
remember the Hibiscus Screaming
Well,
Memes.
Angel Jack was part of them.
Were there at the same time?
Felipe Rose from the Village People.
Wait a minute.
Mark 10.5-inch Stevens, the porn star. But as you turn the page, you get to this one page, and here's a person that hangs out at my bar now at Boom. And there I am dancing with Daniela Marrero, who owned El Uomo Vogue, the Italian.
Point to your face
Vogue.
again. Oh, I see you.
Right there.
Make sure everybody knows.
In fishnets and a boa.
You know, you're the only one I know that can get away with a boa and still look like a man.
Hey, you remember, Studio 54 was always a gimmick.
Right.
The more you dressed up, and for some, the more you dressed down, you got in.
Right.
I remember one time seeing Victor Hugo, who was Halston's longtime lover. He came into Studio 54 wearing a pair of plastic see-through jeans.
Oh my God.
And they let him in.
Of course.
And everything was showing. You know, there's that. Then from there was a magazine called 212. John Blair came out with a magazine.
I remember we had 2 and 2. We've seen
And inside, they came up with this whole service with style that if you went out and were served by any of these people, you were being served by the best.
Could you hold that corner, that upper right corner? Yeah, there you go. Perfect. Let me get zoom in. And you're of course there. Put yourself.
The Studio 54 staff here is myself, John Bello,
Wait. Point yourself again.
myself right here,
I see you.
and then Bob Petty, who just passed away, John Bello. Then you turn the page, and there's another shot of us. That's myself there, former bartender of Studio 54, Bob Petty, John Bello. He's still alive. Michael Hart was a former 54 bartender, but he's passed away.
Wow.
Yeah. Here's another book on Studio 54. This is one of the better ones because in here they have just wonderful photographs of kings and queens and what celebrities, were in the room.
And who took all these photographs?
These were all done. It says Bobby Miller. Bobby Miller was a barback at Studio 54 who took a lot of photographs. And this was his compilation of what he could do with everything. He's still selling it you can find it on Facebook or on one of them. But I mean, there's everybody in here. There's Halston.
Sure.
Francesco Scabula, there's Daniela Marrero again. Victor Hugo, this is how he normally dressed.
That was
Halston's lover.
of many years, yeah.
Look, Ann Miller. I mean, just
Great. Let's look at some of your personal artifacts from Studio 54.
okay. The things that I've saved from Studio 54. Photoplay magazine, August 1977. inside special issue, Masterpieces of the Night, The Unseen History of Studio 54. And you go inside, and it starts off with a tribute to the nightlife starting from the 30s to the 40s,
The 40s with
through the
supper clubs.
50s,
Yeah.
right, supper clubs, and how it evolved into what the world knows now, it's okay, as Studio 54. In this photograph here, you have Bianca Jagger and Jerry Hall on a horse.
We want to read what that says that right there with the Studio 54.
Studio 54 occupies a niche in history, and like most niches, it's full of shadows.
That's the best line I've ever heard.
If you look at
That's when
Jerry
they came
Hall,
in. That's when they came in on the horse. On the
that
white
was her
horse.
birthday. That was that Monday night, which the photograph went around the world in one day on every cover of every newspaper.
And whose birthday was it again?
It was Bianca Jagger.
Bianca Jagger's birthday, and she came in on a white horse.
A white horse.
With Jerry Hall.
But if you look at Jerry Hall closely, she's butt naked. The dress is painted on her body. She is butt naked, bush and all, but the dress was painted on her body.
Oh, you're right.
Isn't that amazing? You turn the page, and then it goes into Studio 54.
Bell and
And it's a piece. They're doing a museum exhibit that's been going around the country of photographs and the memorabilia from Studio 54. And then it goes into area. But there's the picture that Anton Parrish took of me and my friend Denise while we were dancing on the dance floor, and they call it Rapture at Studio 54.
beautiful picture.
But the good one is this one. That's the caption you need to see. In the shadows where fantasies flourish, photographers see not just who we are, but who we want to be. And right in the middle of the dance floor is myself right there.
I can't believe you found yourself. There you are.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Hold on, let it focus. Let it focus. It takes a second for this.
We're going to be using this for the invitation for the next Studio 54 party.
There you go. I got you.
We're going to be using that as the
Boy, now that you point yourself out, I can see you everywhere.
Oh yeah,
It's hilarious.
Let's see, where else do we go from here? Being a bartender at Studio 54, it sort of put me in the limelight.
Go over your shoulder.
Okay? The Roxy in New York, John Blair threw me my birthday party. And this is the invitation. It's starting to fade, but it says September 9th, 1984. And at my birthday party at the Roxy, I had another ex-lover of mine show up, and that was Prince Egon von Furstenberg and Bianca Jagger were at my birthday party. And those are condoms that were blown up by little Roy Cohen. He threw me the party.
Oh, you're kidding. You knew Roy Cohen?
Yes.
And what can you tell me about him?
He was a verbally abusive, loud, sometimes nice, shrewd businessman. He loved his vodka tonics. He loved his young boys. But he was a big force at studio for a while. But he was one of the guys that you would try to avoid. Because he can get you fired in a heartbeat if you looked at him the wrong way.
Right.
You know? Where's the other photograph? I have a photograph of Steve Rebell.
It's okay, go ahead. Go slowly, you're fine. I'm just having fun with these pictures.
Oh, there's so many. Oh, there it is. And here's Steve Rebell with Diane Stafasi
Hold on.
and all the girls that worked at D.D. Dominic's across the street from the French jean store.
Here we go. There's Steve Rebell in the
Yeah,
center.
Steve Rebell's in the middle. That's Enid Shore, Diane Stafasi, and everyone else here worked for D.D. Dominic's.
Great.
Let me push these to the side. You did those, you did Peter. Here at Studio 54, there was a young man by the name of Court Brown. You know, he was a great guy, bisexual, but never admitted to being bisexual. And I believe in the movie and the band Played On, they talk about
Under the light.
they talk about a young man
Perfect.
who infected a young woman with HIV, and her mother and father happened to have been millionaires in New York, and it was the first woman to come down with HIV, and he used to bang her in my liquor room
Wow.
up by the second floor bar at Studio 54. And unfortunately he died. And that's the only picture I have, and anyone else. On Facebook, we have a group called Studio 54 Staff and Alumni. And they've all been asking, and it seems to be I'm the only one that has all this stuff. No one else seems to have saved anything.
You're the pack rat.
You know?
And good for you. Oh my
And
God, love that jacket.
These are just photographs when I modeled. You know, I've done it all.
And who took those pictures?
These were taken by Ken Hack, who also did the piece inside. I'll show you that.
Okay. Before you do that.
And this was for a modeling agency called Fratelli, which is here.
Oh, there's your.
I saved that too.
That's your head. Oh, those are the boys.
Yeah, those are the boys, and there's my headshot.
Right, I zoomed in on you.
Everyone said I look like Ken Wall.
Yeah, you look like you.
Yeah, but you know, back then they were always comparing you to someone,
That's cute. I like it.
you know?
Okay, good.
And that was that. I have this, which is still remarkable, the original 1979 double Studio 54 album. They have made copies.
Lower.
They have made copies of this since that people have bought, but the only difference that makes the real from the fake is that the real album had the silver foil,
Right.
and the fake one that they reproduced years later, it's gray.
Okay.
So that's how you know the original album had the foil front.
Could you open that up one more time?
Of course.
Thank you. Great. And that's just disco music in there?
Yeah, it's the double
house.
album of all the greatest disco songs from our youth.
Wow. And has that been made into like a digital version? Do you know?
You can.
I just
You
wondered
can.
if you could get on iTunes.
I'm sure you can, but
Okay.
who owns a record player?
No, if you got on iTunes, has anybody digitized that?
No, not this.
Oh, I'm
No,
wondering,
no.
they probably don't have the rights.
No.
They probably don't have
not.
the- yeah.
See, and like I said, I work 2 nights a week at Club Boom, and I also throw 3 parties a year for Club Boom. And I'm allowed to use their logos because I work there.
I was going to ask you how you get away with it, because I have just recently read where the Ian Schrager group
Yes.
is putting. I'm going to ask you how you feel about this. The Ian Schrager group has somehow captured the logo and the name,
Yes.
and is putting it in every
Marriott Hotel.
JW Marriott.
He's doing 100 of them
And, yeah.
around the country.
Right, every JW Marriott.
Right.
I just looked that up this morning.
Yes.
Marriott has different brands. It's the
But
yes, go ahead.
he's putting everyone in our Studio 54 alumni group on Facebook. We're all making not fun, but we're laughing about it because they're only going to be 1,900 to 2,400 square feet.
Right, very
So
small.
we're calling them Mini-Me Studio
Right.
54.
How big was the square footage of the dance floor?
Oh, Studio 54, I mean, you could fit a good 500 people on the dance floor.
So what?
The capacity of
7,000,
the room
8,000
had
square
to have been
feet.
1,200, 1,300.
So you're talking 9,000 square feet?
Yeah, maybe more.
Well, that was with all the seating and
And
upstairs.
including the balcony.
Right. So you're talking about they're going to be 1/4 the size.
Right.
It'd be tough to fill up a 10,000 square foot nightclub every night.
But they did.
Yeah, of course they did.
They did.
At
And
that
there
time.
were some nights during the week, like Mondays and Tuesdays, where Steve Rebell was really smart about the whole thing, where he would have 1,000 people out front
Right.
and 250 people inside.
Inside, yeah.
And which made it comfortable. Everyone could do what they wanted to do. And there were photographers, but they were only allowed to do certain things.
Right.
If you saw anyone doing party favors, you were not allowed to photograph it. Even though they do have video of Alan Carr doing
What is a
poppers.
party favor?
A party favor back then would have been Quaaludes and cocaine.
Okay.
I mean, especially cocaine, because one of the backdrops at Studio 54 was a moon and a spoon. And when they came down and met, the lights went off, the nose lit up, the spoon lit up, and that was your indication to go get high. I mean, it was just so obvious, you know?
Yeah. Let's see. We brought some stuff off your walls. Your walls are incredible here at your home.
Yeah,
and we're going to have to turn this around.
Yeah, I just showed this for you.
Fred, do you want to help him with that?
I can lift this away.
You want to help him in case I need to tilt it a certain way?
Well,
and
we can
it's
put it
better?
up here on the chair.
I think you need to stand this way if we can talk about it.
Over here?
Yeah. That way I've got the light. Yeah, perfect. All right. So,
Now this is our
Perfect.
original staff jacket.
perfect.
A lot of the bartenders had them. Some of the security staff members had them. And just recently on our Facebook group, Studio 54 staff and alumni, I have found 5 other employees that still have theirs.
Wow.
But no one had framed them until now.
Sure.
One of them is Chuck Garelick, who is head of security, who now works for Homeland Security. And the other is Oscar Lopez, who is now my dentist in Miami. And these are just photographs of me roller skating. If you look really close into this photograph, you can tell this poor young man must have taken one Quaalude too many because he pissed in his pants.
Oh, I
Every time
see.
I post it on Facebook, people are like, did that guy pee in his pants?
Quaalude makes you do that, yeah.
Huh?
Yeah, Quaalude make you do that.
Uh-huh. And down here's another photograph that Ken Hack took of the bartenders. And then down there's a photograph of me behind the bar with John O'Connor and the waitress girl, I forgot her name. And up here, this is what's collectible. That's a complimentary drink chip that was given out. At a certain point at Studio 54, you could buy drink chips with a credit card instead of using cash. And then they came up with the concept of doing a black complimentary drink chip. But someone screwed up somewhere down the line, because on the back of this it says $100. And at least 7 bartenders got scammed and gave them change when it was a comp drink ticket, and I was one of them. You know, but it wasn't our fault, it was theirs.
Yeah, they shouldn't have.
But
Good.
I had this on a hanger for many years, and when the movie came out, I sort of thought, well, wait a minute, why don't I just frame it?
Looks great.
And that's when I started framing everything.
Good idea.
You know, and I thought, you know, the only bad thing is it's faded.
Sure.
It was black,
Right.
but I like it because it has my name on it, and all the other staff members that have theirs, they only have their first name,
You got your whole name?
or they have staff. I deliberately put my whole name on
I
it.
love your roller skating. And they're not rollerblades. They're
No, they're roller skates. I was a big roller skater.
Oh, really?
There was myself that could roller skate at Studio 54 and roll arena.
Of course, roller arena.
Not too many people were allowed to roller skate at Studio 54.
Well, because it's dangerous. All those people were
And
around.
liability too.
Sure.
That's an old headshot.
It's a great picture. What year was that? Can you tell me?
That's 83 or 84.
Uh-huh. Okay, good. Great.
And then over here,
I see your...
there's so much.
Oh, yeah. We're just going to do a short, probably, this is a short overview.
Right. Here is they threw a party for me at Private Eyes in New York City. It was my 25th birthday party. Does it have it on there of my age? No, it doesn't.
Well, yeah, 1985, when we were born.
Yeah, so it would be 27, 26, something like that.
Okay. You look about that age.
And this was a hot pink jacket with black stripes.
That's cute. I remember those years.
Here's a good one. Here's my John Lennon. I went through a John Lennon phase, and I always had long hair.
And how long did it take you to get that hairdo?
Actually, their stylist did the whole thing.
Yeah, okay.
So,
Very cool.
do you know who that is?
Wait, hold on. I can't see. I'm focusing now.
Remember the name Holly Woodlawn?
Yes, Hollywood Long.
That's her. Take a walk on the wild side, and the color girls go do 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 do. We did a talk show in Atlanta.
Okay. So when did you move out of New York City?
I moved out of New York City. Yeah, would you? Hold on a second.
It's okay. I'm pausing.
I want Claude to document this because someone's doing a thing on Facebook for this.
Okay, good. I'll send you the raw footage. I'll give you.
Yeah, but he's doing this new talk show.
Just hit it there.
I just hit the bottom because it's already on record.
And how long do you want me to do it?
Just do segments of it. I left New York in 1991 after all of our friends were dying in New York. It just became really depressing
Okay.
because it was every other day we were going to funerals.
Right.
And I had met my partner Claude Tant in '89 when we helped our friend Jimmy Paisano rebuild and open Stonewall Inn on Christopher Street.
And what year was this?
And this was in '89 and 1990. And it was called New Jimmy's at Stonewall Inn.
New Jimmy's
And
at Stonewall,
It was a
right.
restaurant and bar. And the restaurant worked out for a while, but then people weren't really eating because they wanted to come in and see the monumental room,
Right.
you know, and people would just come in and sit at the bar and just be happy to be sitting there.
Right.
And we met people from around the world that just flew into New York to come see Stonewall reopened.
Right.
And when we did all that, we did groups together. And here we are with some of the groups from the Stonewall when it first opened. And that's V.
That's the original. Let me see if I can get that logo. Hold on. I got it. There's the Stonewall. Jimmy's
Yeah.
Stonewall.
Yeah, it was New Jimmy's at Stonewall, which was a restaurant. And that's myself with one of the female impersonators, Cheyenne Pretty. Joey D, may he rest in peace. They're all dead. Kevin Cahill, he died many years ago, and myself. There's Jimmy Paisano. He was the man that had the dream. Didn't know it was Stonewall. It used to be a bagel nosh.
Right.
And it sat on Christopher Street for a good 15 years, and no one knew it was Stonewall
Right.
until he discovered it. And Claude and I helped him rebuild the bar.
Great.
This is all Stonewall.
And how long were you there?
We lasted at Stonewall for about 2 years.
Okay.
You know, because back then we moved around a lot. You know, but 1991, there's Jimmy Paisano again. He was such a great man. Such a great man. That's him with his boyfriend. Unfortunately, Jimmy got sick really fast, and he couldn't handle it anymore. So he went into St. Vincent's Hospital, and he did the morphine drip until he finally died. And here's the good one. This is the AIDS walk, I think 1990, and it's the entire staff of Stonewall. We even have local celebrity Electra.
Oh, there's a lot. Oh,
Yeah.
I got it. Okay, so you're leaving. You left New York then again.
Yes, I left New York. Claude and I were living together, and Claude, being a proper Southern gentleman, he started getting over the sights of New York and didn't want to live there anymore. And it sort of freaked me out, but you know, he wanted to move, and he did. And I wasn't willing to leave New York. I grew up in New York. My life was in New York. Everything I had done was in New York. But my heart was in Atlanta. When he moved, he wound up taking the Amtrak train, and we hadn't spoken for a couple of days. But I ran up to Amtrak. I ran up to Penn Station by foot with 3 dozen roses in my hand, and I caught him going down the escalator to catch the train, and he caught my eye. And we met, we wept, we chatted, we wept again, and I told him, give me time, I will leave New York. And I waited for about 3 months, and when I started telling all my close friends I was leaving New York, they were all negative about it, that everything I have done will vanish and disappear. And unfortunately, they did.
Yeah,
So if I hadn't left New York, I would have been alone.
that's true.
So I then moved to Atlanta, and
Whoops.
Judson, he's barking up. I moved to Atlanta, and it was hard for me to get a job, but I found a job. I started working at a nightclub called the Cheetah 3, and I worked there for 9 weeks, and I had gotten a little sick. I caught a little bronchitis, and I had mentioned to one of the other bartenders that I was HIV positive. Well, the next day I went into work, and they fired me and threw me out the back door, telling me that I couldn't work in a strip joint because I was HIV positive. And they were worried if I cut my finger, I could bleed on the ice.
I see.
So I walked out the back door, walked up to a phone booth, and I called Atlanta Legal Aid, and then begun the lawsuit, which goes to here. Cheetah Club ruled liable for firing a worker with HIV.
And what year was this?
This is in 1993.
Okay, that's pretty
No,
early
1996.
for these lawsuits. Yeah.
Yeah, 1996. Well, I won.
Good for you.
The jury awards $360,000 to HIV positive bartender.
Great.
I got up on the witness stand, and for 3 weeks they tortured me about my past, the Calvin Klein book, me being a male prostitute, that if I'm HIV positive I deserved what I got, and that I was a horrible bartender. And when the judge read my resume, he looked at the Cheetah's lawyers and said his resume reads like the encyclopedia. He's worked at every major club in New York City, and all of a sudden now he's a bad bartender? And then they fought and fought about me cutting my finger. So I finally got up on the witness stand, and me being a rude, shrewd New Yorker that I am, I told them, you know, I believe in that right, that if I cut my finger, I could spread that. But when you have women dancing naked over food with their tampon strings cut, how do you know that ketchup on your burger is not ketchup? And the jury just put their pads and notebooks down, and you could see it in their faces that the Cheetah just lost their case.
Great.
And
Great
they
story.
did.
Great
They
story.
did.
All right, so we're going to wrap it up now. You've saved all this stuff. You're living here in Fort Lauderdale. Tell us about your job now and what you produce for Boom.
I've been at Boom now for about 6 years, on and off, 2 nights a week, 3 nights a week.
Boom is a nightclub here in Fort Lauderdale.
Yes, it's a discotheque here in Wilton, on Wilton Drive. When I moved here to get a job, I went to every bar in this town, gave them my resume, and not one person would hire me. Not one. And when Craig Atterbury from Boom called, he called and said, I want to hire you and speak to you, but is there anyone alive to verify all this? So instead I said, yeah, let me come in, I'll show you. And I brought him everything I owned. And the man stood there with his tongue out and hired me. And then we started doing Studio 54 parties. I throw 3 a year. And this year's theme is going to be the pajama party. The last 2 were costume parties. I bring all my memorabilia with me. I mean, if you look here, these things all get hung up. Yeah, that goes behind the bar.
I'm just getting it slowly.
I've been photographed by Ken Hack, Scavullo, Anton Parrish. So I mean, I've
Well, yeah, when you Google your name, your Scavullo picture comes up.
yeah, a lot of things are popping up there. But if you do Sal Defalco, certain things pop up. If you do Salvatore C. Defalco,
Right.
then I think the lawsuit pops up.
Right, Salvatore but it's amazing when you do Peter Allen, you also come up.
Right.
Almost very first thing.
Here, these are collector's items now. This was Sylvester's last performance before he died at Studio 54. We had to put him on the bridge, and we had to build an airplane around him to hide his wheelchair.
Oh, okay.
Because he wanted to perform, but he had neuropathy so bad he couldn't walk.
Right.
And I saved that. Then over here, I've got the night we had a party for Cheetah Rivera winning her Tony Award.
Okay, let me get that in. Tilt it down. Tilt it down. Yeah, there you go.
Oh, because of the glare?
Yeah, I got it.
You got it?
Yeah, sure do. Nice.
And this, I've already
And what
had.
did she win her Tony Award for? I forgot.
It was for The Rink
The Rink, okay.
with Liza Minnelli.
Nellis, yeah. I knew
And
it
this
was-
one, I've had guys at Boom offer me $100, $200. It's the night Sarah Dash performed at Studio 54. Sinnerman,
Yeah.
which is a gay iconic hit.
Still.
Here, and here's another good one. Fran Jolie performing at Studio 54.
Now, who's Frangeli?
Come to Me,
Oh, okay. Come to... That's right.
which she did on Fire Island at the first ever morning party, was Beach 79, with Calvin Klein and Steve Rebell at the door. And there were 3 acts that night. It was Patrick Juvet, I Love America, the Pointer Sisters, and Fran Jolie. But by the end of the night, Everyone forgot who the other performers were. Frangeli stole the night.
That's great.
And it was a fundraiser to raise money for a fire truck in the Pines, and they raised over $300,000, hence the morning party, hence circuit parties.
That's when it started.
1979 beach party was the first circuit party ever known. And then came the morning party. But everyone took the morning party as being in the morning, but it actually started from us going to the beach in the morning, throwing another set of ashes out into the ocean,
Yeah.
and we would light candles.
Right.
And that turned from that to house parties, and the first one was called Find a Cure. I still have the t-shirt, and the deck collapsed because there were too many people,
right.
and that's when they moved it to the beach.
Right. Okay, Sal, thank you so much. I want to really, this is so enjoyable. We're going to do this again. We'll do part 2 soon.
Forget that.
Oh, you're in this book, right?
Yes.
Let's.
The Calvin, nothing ever came between me and Calvin Klein except maybe Calvin.
Okay, this is Calvin Klein's book.
Yes.
This is the unauthorized,
Biography called Obsession, The Life and Times of Calvin Klein
written by Stephen Gaines. And this is very carefully saying the unauthorized.
Unauthorized version.
Right.
And
This is before he's had all that bad work done.
yeah, and this is, when he always said he was straight.
Or,
And
yeah,
2 years ago,
he got married again.
3 years ago in Vanity Fair, he had finally admitted that he is bisexual.
Yeah, convenient.
And that's all I can do is say to that. But if you turn to page 256 in the book, it talks about me being in bed with Calvin Klein, sharing cocaine and cocaine.
Could you read for us?
It says,
Thank you, need glasses?
if Calvin overreacted to man's observation, perhaps it was because he was feeling a little guilty. Less than 2 weeks after the kidnapping, he was back to his sexual habits. A 22-year-old handsome Italian stallion for hire, Sal Defalco remembered meeting Calvin shortly after the kidnapping in a gay discotheque called the Ice Palace on West 57th Street. Defalco was a dark-eyed beauty with a washboard stomach that was a product of hours at the gym. Calvin shyly engaged him in conversation, and the two of them had a few drinks at the bar before Calvin asked him home to the Sovereign. Defalco wound up staying in Calvin's apartment for the entire week, a period he vividly remembers. It was great, says Defalco, who loved being in the apartment so much he seldom left, except to go to the nearby gym. It had walls that moved. The maid would come in and feed me and do my laundry. Defalco also commented that on one side of the bed was Quaaludes and on the other side was cocaine. Defalco spent most of the week in Calvin's bed making lots of phone calls to let everybody know where he was staying. At night, about 8, said Defalco, Calvin would come home from the office and he immediately wanted to have sex. Defalco also quite impressed with Calvin's resilience, claiming it was normal for him to want to make love several times a night. And at the end of the week, Calvin politely asked him to leave. There were no hard feelings, said Defalco, a young man, for he never expected any more from Calvin. And then in here I went on the Geraldo Rivera show, and it was an episode called Snitching on the Stars. And I sat up on stage with a photograph of Calvin Klein behind me, and I just told him the truth.
That's great.
I had nothing to hide. Geraldo asked me about lawsuits, and I said, let them sue me. Give me a lie detector's test.
Right.
Do whatever you need to do. I'm telling you, this is the truth. I've got nothing to hide.
Good for you.
And I'm alive. I've survived the second Holocaust. I'm alive.
You made it, honey. Thanks,
how, I
Sal.
don't know.
This is so much fun. I want to give you a hug. You're the best.
You know what? I brought out all the transcripts. Look.